Hi there, this is Kelly Ann with Church Windows. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Today we are looking at, in version 22, just step 1 of the reporting screen. We're not going to look at step 2, just step 1 because that's where a major change occurred for version 22. It's a really good change. Things look different, but everything is still there. If you're coming from an older version, things are still there that you had before, but there's some new things you can do that people have been asking for. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to be using some material from one of our workbooks. You don't need that material to understand what's going on in the webinar. Let me go ahead and show you real quickly. It's from Workbook Membership 204, which if you are interested in purchasing the workbooks or you already own the current workbooks, we can find those on our website by going to Beginning and then clicking on Training Workbooks. And there's some information here about the purchase price and some package prices. If I scroll down here, what I'm using is from Membership 204, and it's the first 10 pages, pages 2 through 10. Again, we're just going to look at the first step of the reporting screen. Now, if this is your first time using the GoToWebinar software, I won't be unmuting people. Instead, there's a question panel that you can open up and you can type questions in there during the webinar. Rachel is here and she'll answer questions during the webinar. Excuse me. During the webinar, Rachel will answer questions in the question panel, but then at the end, I'll open up the floor for everyone to just type in questions that I'll read out loud and answer out loud for everyone. Another thing, if it's your first time using the software, on the side of the toolbar, there's a little orangish reddish arrow. If you click on that, it will minimize down the toolbar so it's not blocking the screen, what I'm showing you. To bring that back up, if you need to open it for the question panel, just click that little arrow and that will open that back up again. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into looking at version 22, the area of membership reporting. Now there's two ways we can get to membership reports. We can click right here on the opening screen, middle of the screen, the printer that says reports. If we click on it there, that opens up step 1, select who should appear on the report. That's the same thing as if we were to go up to reports export along the top, select reports and labels and choose reports directory export. Either one of those routes takes you to the exact same screen. It's just clicking on reports right here in the middle is a shortcut and takes you directly to that screen for reports. Now, there's also some standard reports set up, and those are still in the program. I'm going to show you those real quickly. We're going to look at the general report screen, but the birthday report, anniversary report, groups and classes report, skills interest report, those are still up here. And when you click on birthday and reports directory export, it will open you up to the second part of step 1, which I'm going to show you here momentarily. So it will still open you up to the people criteria with the birth date of the current month filled in. And if we go to anniversary and choose reports directory export, opens us up to the people selection screen with the marriage date filled in for the current month. And you can change that if needed. Same thing for our groups and skills or skills and interests. I'll just show you one here. If we choose groups, classes, and then reports directory export, opens up step 1, but just like in 21, it pops right up on the groups, classes selection because it expects you to choose a group or class. And if we were to do the skills or interests, it does the same thing. Attendance reports are a little different, and those are discussed in other workbooks. But in all of those reports, the first thing you do is you start off deciding who is going to be on the report. Who do we want information for? So all the canned or generic reports, birthday, anniversary, group skills, those function the same way as what I'm about to show you, except they're a little more specific, and the reports you can print out have specific things to birthday, anniversary, or group skills. Whereas if we go through just regular reports, it's more general, and it doesn't expect you to have put a birthday or an anniversary or so on. Let's go ahead and look at, if you're following along in the book for version 22, page 3, let's go ahead and look at reports. So I'll click on reports, and again, it opens me up to step 1. If you look in the upper left corner, that always gives you a little indicator about what you're doing on this screen. Here I'm selecting who should appear on the report. I'm not choosing a layout. I'm not choosing what it's going to grab from the people. Step 1 is simply who, narrowing down to the people I want on my report. Now, if you're familiar with the older version, it would open up to a screen that looked similar to what we see here on our Edit People Selection screen. So that's not gone. On this first step 1 screen, you have a couple of things you can do. You have 3 different number choices where I can put in criteria for the people. I have my and or where I can say and, meaning I want them to meet all my criteria. If I chose or, then that would mean it's a more broad criteria. They can be this or that. And something new here that people have been asking for, it might look a little confusing at first, but everything's still here. And the older, you had a giving pledging tab up here. You had 4 tabs, I believe. Might have been 5. Might have been a fonts tab as well. But you had a giving pledging tab up here, but you were limited. You could only put in 1 giving pledging selection. There's now a giving pledging button. And when we get to 3, I'll show you. It's really neat. You can build different giving and pledging criteria. Say people who pledged last year but did not pledge this year. You weren't able to do that in the prior version report builders, but now with the way they've maneuvered and changed the screen around, you have the ability to do that. So this giving pledging, which we'll look at here a little down the line, that's going to give us the ability to add pledging and giving and pledging criteria. Now we have tabs across the top. The first one is called our query builder, because that's where we're building the query to ask for the people, certain people who meet certain criteria on their records or giving and pledging. We have an accounts tab where if you are putting in giving and pledging information, you might want to just look at a specific campaign or account. If you don't choose anything here, then it looks at all accounts. It doesn't narrow down to any account criteria. And we also have a sort tab. That's the same, where we can choose up to 3 different sort fields. Now this isn't what's going to be on the report. This is the order it will print the information, like alphabetically, by zip code, by age, membership date. This is the order the material will be in. So let's go back to our first tab, the Query Builder, and let's look at the Edit People Selection criteria. If you want to put in criteria based on information on their records, attendance, different things like that, then we click on the Edit People Selection criteria button. And this is what most people used the most. Again, the old report screen would open up to a screen that looked like this with tabs across the top. But now that we're giving you the ability to add more than 1 giving and pledging criteria line, they've made this a separate button. Still functions the same. Maybe we just want active people with a status code of active. So upper left here, I can see I have a list of all the different fields from my records. So here we have everything. I'm just going to click in here. Whoops, I want to cancel that. I'm going to click here and clear that out. And I'm just going to start typing status. Now, unfortunately, state has the same letters, so it gave me all those states. But as I keep typing, it narrows down to status code, which I can select. And then I just want active members. So I'm going to check active members and then click plus add to selection. Now, I could, if I wanted to, maybe I only want people, active people with an email address, or I want other criteria along with that. I can click and or right here, or use parentheses, and I can add more criteria. I can build multiple lines of criteria here. We're just going to go ahead and go with the active. Now, I'm going through this quickly. If you're looking at the book, I'm already on page 5, top of page 5. Over the right side, we still see the same things we had on the report screen. If you are coming from an older version, you can include different bits of giving information. Here we could look for people with or without numbers, a giver number range, or we can create a range if we need to. We can include or exclude different categories that we have on our people files. And we can choose to include people we've marked inactive, membership groups, or from donations, our individual or group givers. Now, because these are over in donations and they don't have a full membership record, they would not be limited to having a status code of active, because there's no way on their simple limited information donation giver or individual group or individual giver record, there's no way to record those things. So we're not going to check any of those. We're just looking for members or visitors with a status code of active. So I'll go ahead and click OK once I'm done adding any of my criteria here. And then I can connect if that's all I need is people with a status code of active, I can go ahead and click next. If you don't need to add any giving or pledging information, then you're pretty much done. But I want to show you how the giving and pledging information works, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. Now that is on bottom of page 5. Actually let me refer to number 2 here before we move on. I want the people in my report to have a status code of active, and I want them to have pledged in 2018 but not pledged in 2019. So I want to connect that with an and. If I wanted them to be either active or meet my giving and pledging criteria that I'm about to put in, then I could change this to an or. But I want them to meet both of the people criteria and the giving pledging criteria. So I'm going to put an and. And now I'm going to click this Add Giving Pledging Selection Criteria button. And that brings up, again, if you're coming from an older version, this is what you would see on the tab called Giving and Pledging that was up here along the different tabs. So now it's just moved to be a button. And here we see the same things. Under Giving, I can choose all, meaning doesn't matter whether they gave or not, only those who gave, only those with giving, and then I can put a certain range in here, or only those who did not give. And then the same things under Pledging. All, only those who pledged, people with pledging within a certain range I can enter, or people who did not pledge. And then if I choose only those with pledging from, then that opens up the different pledge types, and I can ask for people who have met or not met their pledges. We want only those who pledged and giving all. We would assume people who pledged gave, but maybe they didn't. So I want to see people who pledged is the main thing I want. And again, I want that for 2018. So if I go over to the right side here, I can change my date range. It defaults to my current year. I can change it really easily by just clicking minus year, and that changes it to 2018. Now just above that, I could include for people who receive statement, all, people who are marked receive it, or people who are marked do not receive a statement. And then here for gives with family, I could choose all, or just people marked to give with a family, or people who are individual givers or not marked gives with family. I'm going to leave those at all because those aren't important. I want to see everyone. So I'll go ahead and click Add. Now we see I have for the date range of 1/1/2018 to 12/31/18, all regardless of giving, and only those who pledged for all pledge types. I'm going to go ahead and click And, because I also want them to meet the criteria of in 2019 not having pledged. So I'm going to click on my Add Giving Pledging Selection Criteria button again. And here I'm going to change giving to all and pledging to only those who did not pledge. I'm going to leave my date range at 2019 and then click Add. And now we see I've built my criteria where I'm looking for people in 2018 who did pledge, and in 2019 they did not pledge. All right, now let's go ahead and look at page 7. A few more things we can look at if needed. Can click on the Accounts tab along the top. If you wanted to look at a specific account, or maybe you wanted to look at a specific campaign, you could select those here. I want to look at just any pledging, not a specific campaign or account, so I'm not going to choose anything here. If I wanted a specific account, I could highlight it and use the arrow to move it over. But I want to look at everything, so I'm going to leave all my accounts over as available, and that means all accounts will be selected. On the sort tab, I could change my sort order if I like. I'm just going to leave it at alphabetic. That's how I'll have my report printout. And that pretty much, I'm done putting in my criteria. Now, if this is something I'm going to run throughout the year, maybe I want to throughout the year keep trying to find, maybe new people add pledges, and I want to maybe send a letter out every couple months just saying, hey, I saw you pledged in 2018 and not 19. Maybe I want to save this so I can bring this up again. So down along the bottom, notice we have Save Selections. I can click this little save icon and put in a save name. So I'm going to call this what the search is, active, pledge 18, no pledge 19. So I can use this again. Now, if I wanted to use it next year, then I'd want to come in and edit my date ranges because it's looking at 18 versus 19. So when you do save things, if they have date ranges in them, remember you might need to come in and edit the date range. But by saving it, that helps you remember, all the criteria you put in at least. So we'll go ahead and click OK. Now notice we have little edit buttons here where I can click on edit, and that brings the screen up for me to edit that selection. But we're going to go ahead, and if I were to click next, that would take me to step 2, showing the people who meet the criteria, and then I could go ahead and choose whatever report type I like and print that out. Now we're not going to discuss step 2 today. We're really just looking at step 1, how you set up the criteria, because that screen is a little different than what you're used to seeing in the older versions. Let's go ahead though really quickly. On page 9, it talks about how you can reuse a saved find. So maybe it's a week or a month later and I want to run that same criteria again and see if there's anybody different. So down along the bottom where it says Save Selections, I can just click the down arrow, choose the name of the search, the save selection I entered, and when I choose it, notice it pops all my criteria right in. So there we have all our criteria. Hit next, bring up, I'm going to see the same list here. I'll just bring up the basic columnar report just so you can see it real quick. On the report as well, at the very end, well, we only had, so I was going to go to the next page. It's only one page, but notice here it gives me a count, tells me all my criteria. So again, on the report, I also have that summary at the bottom that shows that criteria that matches what we saw on step 1. All right. So that is everything I wanted to show you. Let me show you one more thing. Maybe I decide to change something here. Maybe I want to look at 2017 versus 2018. So I go in and change my date ranges, click add, and then I hit next. The program notices that I had chosen a save selection and then I made changes to that save selection. So it will ask, do you want to save these changes? Well, I'm not going to save them because I'm just looking for fun. And if I were to change them, I would probably want to rename my save selection since I just changed my date range. But do know that if you choose a save selection, you go in and edit that save selection and hit next. The program will ask you if you want to save those changes. If I say yes, let me just say yes so you can see it does work. Moves on to the next screen. If I close that and come back in and I choose that save selection now, because I told it yes, it saved that change of me changing it to 2017 and to 2018 on the 2 different lines. All right. Well, that completes our topic for today.